Hi there, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nicole with morningchores.com. Today is the fourth video in our preparedness series. Today we're discussing the categories of cleanliness, tools, and entertainment. If you've been following us through the whole series, welcome back. Today we're finishing up the top 10 category list that I shared in the introduction video. So if you're new here and you are just jumping on, I highly recommend that you click on the links in the description box below. We did an introduction to preparedness, discussed why we would want to prepare. I also gave just a very easy approach to getting started. And then the last two videos, I shared in more detail some of the categories in my top 10 list. So today we're going to focus on those last three categories of cleanliness, tools, and entertainment. Now, before I get into the categories, I want to remind you of my three top rules. Rule number one is we are only prepping for 3 days. This is just to get you started, so it's not too overwhelming. And this should be pretty easy to do with these three categories because they're not as time sensitive as maybe food, for example. The second rule is that you only want to stock up on things that you're already using, things that you actually use. That way you can cycle through the things and replace and replenish as needed and nothing goes wasted. And the last rule is you should have 3 sources or 3 ways to accomplish the same task. So for example, when we discussed water back in video 2, I mentioned that you should have 3 different ways at least to obtain clean water, drinking water. So if you are catching rainwater, you need a way to filter it. If you are drinking out of a stream, you need another way to filter it. If you are getting water out of your well, have a hand pump or have a generator so that you can access running water. This is really, really important because if one of your systems fails, you have at least 2 other backups that you can depend on. The first category we're going to discuss today is cleanliness, and I think this one is almost just as important as food and water because it's very important, especially if the power goes out and you have no running water. It's super important that you're keeping things clean and you're trying to avoid cross-contamination because it's very easy in these types of situations to have diseases come back like dysentery and cholera. I'm probably not saying that right, but there's lots of diseases that can come back from cross-contamination or just not keeping things clean. So this is very, very important. So this mainly has to do with keeping yourself clean, keeping your tools clean, such as dishes and cooking utensils and things like that, and also keeping your home clean. So those are kind of the 3 main categories we're going to tackle today. So you might think, how do I begin in this? Well, first, just make a list of the things that you use on a daily basis. So in the morning, you get up and wash your face, brush your teeth, you get dressed, so you have to put clean clothes on. Maybe you use the restroom. You're probably washing dishes every day. You may not be doing laundry every day, but that's another thing you can add to the list. Also keeping your home clean. You know, what do you need to keep the floors clean or keep the surfaces clean? This is where you can start making that list. And this is a really easy category to stock up on, especially for just 3 days. Because for example, if you buy an extra bottle of shampoo to keep on hand, that bottle could probably last you several months, depending on how often you wash your hair. So this is really easy. Just buy 1 extra of everything and store it in a linen closet or in your basement, and then that way you're good to go. Another aspect of this category, and this is something I discovered 2 years ago, we had a power outage that lasted 3 days due to some severe storms that came through our area. And I was able to put a lot of these things to the test, but one thing I found really helpful is I set up stations. So I had a dishwashing station. I would have had a laundering station, but I didn't have to do laundry because it was only 3 days. I had a bathing station and I had a toileting station. So the dishwashing station and the bathing station I put outside near our hand pump. That way we were near the water. The mess was kind of outside and I didn't have to deal with it in here. The toileting station I had set up in our downstairs bathroom, and basically all it was a bucket with sawdust in it, and I put a toilet seat on top, and then every time we used the restroom we would just put more sawdust on top just to keep down the smell. But we didn't have running water, so we couldn't flush the toilets, so that's something that I had to do. And I just found having these stations kept me very organized, and it also kept things more clean, and that's just really, really important. So here's a clip of my station. I went ahead and set it up kind of how I had it a couple years ago, just to give you an idea. So let's check that out right now. Here I have my station set up next to my manual hand pump, which is right here. That's where our wellhead is, and we added the manual hand pump so that we can access water from our well without electricity. So here I have all the stations set up. I have my dishwashing station over here on the left. I have my clothes washing station on the right, and I even have a bar of soap next to the hand pump right there. And then I also have a dish towel hanging there for easy access to dry your hands or dry dishes. So let's go over each station in more detail. Now obviously I would not have this set up out here in the winter time. I would do things a little different. I'd probably set up the laundry in the garage, and then I would turn my kitchen sink into a dry sink to wash dishes, and I just put a bucket underneath to catch the gray water, and then bathing would have to be done near the wood stove inside. So that would be a little different, but when we lost power back in 2022 for 3 days, I had it set up very similar to this. The only thing I didn't have to do was laundry because it was only 3 days, but if I did, this is how I would set it up. So on the laundry station side, I have this old wringer washer stand that I purchased at a garage sale, and it came with this basin, and then I added this one over here. So this would just be a way to wash the clothes, wring all the excess water out. And then I also have this washing board down here, which I've actually tried it out, and it really does get the clothes a lot cleaner with a bar of soap. So if something was extra dirty, I could use that. And then the nice thing about having the station out here is, again, it's near the water, but I also have my dry rack behind me, so I could just easily take the clothes and go hang them to dry on the clothesline. On this side, I have my dishwashing station set up, and the only thing that I would add to it is I would add one of these basins to soak the dirty dishes in, and then I would use one of these bowls for soapy water and one for rinsey water, and then I would use this over here to heat up my water on the campfires for hot water. And then of course I have my soap and my dish rags and dish towels. And I probably would add a bigger table and one a little taller to save my back.
Whoa!
Yeah, so now you can put your toy in here to rinse it. Yeah.
You can pour water in here.
There's no water in this.
Oh.
This would be to heat up water. So if we had to heat up water, we could put this on the campfire.
Oh, let's do that.
Well, we have to start a fire. We're not going to do that today, okay?
Mommy, what do we do next?
Well, now you can get another toy from your sandbox. And that's perfect.
Rinse the nest.
Rinse it. Yep. And stick it in that water. Yep. And we'll set it to dry.
Mommy,
Yes.
this is gonna take a long time to go.
You think so?
Yeah.
Why?
And I need to take a break.
Okay.
It's
The next category is tools, and I'm sure most of us have tools lying around, but when the power goes out and you don't have electricity, you have to kind of think about doing things a little differently. So you may want to start acquiring some hand tools. So, kitchen gadgets to help you prepare food without electricity. This is a manual egg beater, but I can also use it to mix my pancake batter or do other things. You may want to start collecting cast iron so that you can cook over a campfire or on a wood stove. You may want to have things like hammers, screwdrivers, nails. You might want an axe or a way to process wood without a chainsaw. Having all these kinds of tools on hand will make getting those jobs done a little easier, especially when you don't have electricity. So, and as you saw in the clip with my washing station, I had a lot of manual tools there for washing clothes. Washing dishes is pretty simple. You just need a washcloth and a dry towel and some elbow grease. But really just starting to collect these tools, and you just may need to start thinking about what kind of tasks do you need to accomplish on a daily basis, and then ask yourself, how do I do that without power, without electricity? Another part of this category that I decided to include last minute is clothing. You probably could have a separate category for clothing, but I feel like most of us have enough clothing, so it's just a matter of having clothing that's warm enough for wintertime and durable enough. So you want to make sure that you have some pretty sturdy shoes that you can wear that can handle tough jobs and a lot of walking. I mean, hopefully the power's not out for that long, but you never know if your car gets broken down somewhere and you have to walk, to the nearest exit or the nearest house. You may have to walk for a ways, so you want to make sure you have some comfortable shoes, comfortable clothing. But especially in wintertime, you want to make sure if the power goes out, and especially if you don't have a wood stove or a generator or anything like that, you can pile on the clothes. So just having some good thermal undergarments, having wool clothing, having really warm socks, and being able to layer will be really important in that situation. And the last category is entertainment. And you may think that is not important in a grid down situation or an emergency situation, but I do think it is helpful to have some things on hand to entertain yourself and your kids when the power goes out, because you're not going to have TV or the internet or anything like that. So how can we entertain ourselves, especially at nighttime? Because at nighttime, when it gets dark and you're not tired and the power's out, you need something to do. So things like books, board games, crafts, maybe some hand sewing projects like embroidery. Of course, you can always go outside during the day and go for walks. Of course, you might be thinking, I'm going to be way too busy washing dishes by hand and doing laundry by hand to have time to entertain myself. But you will have those just little bouts of time where you won't have anything to do. So for example, when we had those storms come through a couple years ago, it was the end of June and it was very hot. And so by mid-afternoon, it was just too hot to be outside to do anything. So we would go to the basement and kind of hang out down there, and we would just read or play games or different things like that, or just sit and do nothing, but just try to cool off. So having those things on hand, I just think it's a good morale booster. It kind of gives you something comforting. It's a way to connect with each other, but also pass the time. And I just think it's good psychologically as well. As if you're in a stressful situation, like for example, if you're in a waiting room at a hospital waiting for someone to come out of surgery, just having something to do to pass the time instead of just sitting there thinking about the situation, it will just make it so much better for your well-being. Thank you for joining me in today's video, and I hope you enjoyed the series. I found it really fun to put together, and I hope that you learned something from it. I would love to hear in the comment section below if there's anything that I missed, any categories or tools that you'd like to add. Just add them down there and we can always learn from each other. You can also head over to morningchores.com. There's lots of information over there about gardening, homesteading, sustainability, all kinds of ways that you can boost those skills up so that in an emergency situation you're better prepared. Hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll see you on the next one.